Hello everyone. We at Guru Institute are very happy to host this session on ICAI Intermediate's mock test paper. So, out of our experience, we can confidently tell you that we've always seen at least 2 to 3 questions landing straight away from the mock test paper. If you're fortunate, it is going to be even 4 to 5 questions. So, I'm sure this is going to be very helpful for you. Wishing you all the very best. Let's jump into the test paper. First, let's switch into the multiple choice questions. Question number 1. Mr. Lakshman is appointed as statutory auditor of Best Limited for the financial year ended 31st March 2020. During the course of audit, it was found that few doubtful transactions had been committed by finance manager who retired in March 2020. The fraud was going on since last 4 to 5 years and the total amount misappropriated is approximately 75 lakhs. So remember, the fraud misappropriated, it is less than 1 crore. It is approximately 75 lakhs. Balance sheet of Best Limited reflected a cash balance of 7 crores. But at the same time, the company has taken a loan of 2 crores from the bank despite huge cash balance with the company. Also, Companies Act bestows some duties on auditors to report matters to central government in case of fraud. We know this. This is from section 143, subsection 12. On the basis of above facts, answer below questions in relation to Mr. Lakshman's role and responsibilities while conducting statutory audit of Best Limited. Mr. Lakshman shall obtain dash that the financial statements are free from fraud and misstatement. We have seen this enough and more in standards on auditing. It is reasonable assurance. So the auditor has to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from fraud and material misstatement. It is not absolute assurance. You cannot get absolute assurance because of the inherent limitations of audit. It is only reasonable assurance. It is not management's assurance. It is the auditor who has to obtain that assurance. It is not CFO's assurance as well. Question number 2. Mr. Lakshman suspects that cash payments were inflated. Out of the below, which could be probable reason for such inflated cash payments? So when cash payments are getting inflated, what could be the probable reason? Not accounting for cash sales completely. When you don't account for your cash sales completely, your cash receipts are going to get decreased. Your cash payments are not going to get inflated. Making payments against purchase vouchers. That is the right thing to do. You make payments against your purchase vouchers. That is a perfect thing to do. So there is no inflation of it. Making payments against inflated vouchers. Yeah. So for example, the voucher, the actual expense is for say 500 rupees. But the voucher is inflated to 750 rupees. So you're making a payment for 750 rupees. In that case, you're inflating your cash payment to the extent of 250 rupees. So this is the answer. And the last option is teaming and lading. Teaming and lading is more of a way of whereby you suppress your cash receipts. So you get receipts from one party, one debtor, you don't show it in your books, you misappropriate it. The next debtor, you get there is a receivable from the next debtor and that debtor also pays you. Whatever he pays you, that you adjust against your first debtor. The third debtor now comes into picture, he makes you a payment. That payment, whatever you got from the third debtor, you adjust it against the second debtor. That concept is called teaming and lading. Okay. So now into third question of the same MCQ. As per section 143 subsection 12 of Companies Act 2013 and rule 13 of CAAR 2014, Mr. Lakshman shall. So always remember, as per section 143 subsection 12, which speaks on fraud reporting to the central government. In case the value is greater than 1 crore, you report it to the central government. In case the value of fraud is less than 1 crore, then you report it to the audit committee or to the board. Okay, so let's get into the answer. Point A, report the matter to the audit committee constituted under section 177 or to the board in other cases within such stipulated time as may be prescribed. Report the matter to the audit committee constituted under 177. Report the matter to the audit committee constituted under 177 and also to the board. Report the matter to the board within such time. So the concept is, it is to audit committee or to board is what is said in section 143. So the right answer is answer A. Next, owing to the dash limitations of an audit, there is dash risk that some material misstatements of the financial statements will not be detected even though the audit is properly planned and performed in accordance with essays. This, even if I'm going to wake you up from sleep, if I'm going to ask you what limitations are there in an audit, you need to say it is inherent limitations. And because of that, what risk is there that the auditor may not detect the material misstatements, whether arising from fraud or error? That is unavoidable risk. Okay, so the right answer is inherent risk, inherent limitations of audit and unavoidable risk that material misstatements may go undetected. Next, as an auditor, what conclusion can Mr. Lakshman draw looking at the huge cash reserve of the company and corresponding bank loan? We saw that the company has got a cash reserve of 7 crores and at the same time it is going to the bank and getting a loan of 2 crores. Why would any company do that? Is it fraud? Does the auditor has got a reason to believe that it is fraud? An auditor has got a reason to believe it is fraud only when he has got sufficient and appropriate audit evidence with him to prove that there is some sort of an existence of fraud. Only then you can say there is reason to believe. So the right answer in this case will be the auditor first he has to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence for the existence of fraud, and then he can report if yes he has got substantial appropriate audit evidence, then he can report this matter to the central government under section 143 subsection 12. So that is the right thing to do. And once that is reported, then you can come to CARO under CARO 2020 or now which is CARO 2016 as the case may be. So going into the next MCQ question. Roop & Co are the auditors of Onda Group of Hotels. This is the first time the firm is auditing an industry in food and beverages and it is day one of the audit. The engagement partner along with his team wants to make a thorough understanding of the entity and its environment in order to identify and assess the risks of material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error. The following are some of the points identified by them on day one. Point number 1. The hotel has got 2 banquet halls. The documentation available for verification of banquet hall revenue is only the invoice raised by the hotel and some mail conversations on customer enquiry and finalization of price. In audit trial, it is found that the finance approval of the transaction is only after invoice is sent to them for accounting at final settlement. Advance paid by the clients are not vetted through the finance team. The auditor suspects a weakness in the system. This is very evident. You've got a process in place, but the controls which are there, the organization's internal control is not in good place. The internal controls are so weak that lot of the issues in the process can go undetected. A lot of the errors or a lot of the frauds in the process can go undetected. So there is evidently a control risk in the system. Point number 2. The auditor also finds control deficiency in the process of procurement of stores. A goods receipt note, which is GRN, is not prepared at the time of receipt of goods. On inquiry with the management, the auditor finds that there exists a system control wherein GRN is automatically prepared and approved in the system once the quantity and price of goods is entered against a specific vendor. Good. This entry is on real-time basis and system does not allow backdated entries. Okay, perfect. So this is a case where you don't have a proper control. You don't have the initial control, which is a GRN has to be prepared at the time of receipt of goods. That is not there. But there is a compensating control in place because the auditor finds that there is a system control whereby a GRN is prepared once you enter the quantity and price of goods against a particular vendor. So this is done on real-time basis. You cannot do backdated entries. So this is a very good compensating control which is in place. Okay. The third point. The auditor inquires of the management as to what is risk assessment process that is followed by the entity for prevention and detection of risk of material misstatement due to fraud and error. The auditor finds there is no documented risk assessment process. You need to understand one thing. There will be a very properly documented risk assessment process in a store like Walmart or Flipkart or Amazon. But there will not be a proper documented risk assessment process in a kirana shop, in a local kirana shop or in a local anachi kadai that you go next and see and purchase goods. It might not be there, but in both the places, the owners will know what the risks are. They'll know the ways of how to address the risks, just that it might not be documented. So as an auditor, what you need to do is you need to understand whether the owners of the company have got a proper understanding of what risks are, how these are to be addressed, and what are the control mechanisms they have to address these risks. That is major for you, and that you need to see whether it is in place, or because of this absence of a documented risk procedure, it is going to cause a very huge impact on the company. That's major for you. Because of that, is there going to be a major material misstatement in your financial statements? Okay, let's get into the questions. What kind of a risk is portrayed in the booking of revenue with respect to banquet halls? As we saw, it is control risk because there is a process, but the entity's internal control is very poor. It might, because of the poor entity's internal controls, the process lag or the control gaps might go undetected. Which among the following is incorrect in the context of audit risk? Okay, the more extensive the audit procedures performed, the lower is the detection risk. This has got nothing to do with your audit risk. Okay, greater the risk of material misstatement the auditor believes exists, less is the detection risk that can be accepted, and accordingly more persuasive evidence is required by the auditor. Okay, no. Audit risk means the risk that the auditor gives an appropriate audit opinion when financial statements are materially misstated. Yeah, this is exactly what you call audit risk. That the auditor's opinion might be wrong, or the auditor might not give an appropriate audit opinion when there is a financial misstatement, when there is a material misstatement in your financial statements. That is audit risk. And the next one, risk of material misstatement at the assertion level is of two kinds, control risk and inherent risk. The statement is correct, but it has got nothing to do with your audit risk. Okay. Question number 3. In the case of procurement of stores, the auditor has tested more than one control for the same assertion, right? In that given case, what should be his reliance on the control? Since compensating controls are identified, if tested and evaluated to be effective, the auditor can rely on the control. Dude, at the end of the day, we are all auditors. We don't trust anything at face value. We try it, we test it, we sample run it, we do a walkthrough, and only then do we believe it. So this is the right thing. Okay. Point number B, even though compensating controls are there in place, okay, since one control is ineffective, the auditor should not rely on control for this assertion and should perform extensive procedures. Not required. There is original control, that control is not there. For that, there is a compensating control. Okay, it is there. Do you trust it? No. You test check it, you run it, you evaluate it for yourself, and if you rely on it, go with it. That's okay. Documentation in electronic medium cannot be accepted, hence he cannot rely on the control. No, life will not survive if you don't rely on documentation in electronic medium these days. It doesn't work that way. Even though compensating controls are there, since one control is ineffective, the auditor should not rely on control for this assertion as well as associated controls. Do no. So as I told you, there is a compensating control, test for the compensating control, evaluate for yourself, and if you trust on it, if that is working perfectly, just rely on that control. The next one, in the context of SA 315, which among the following is not a risk assessment procedure? Inquiries of management of appropriate individuals within internal audit function and of others within the entity. Okay, this is a proper risk assessment procedure because you interview with people, you inquire with people within the management, within internal audit function, within others in the entity. Okay. Analytical procedures whereby you perform all your trend analysis, ratio analysis, financial ratios comparison. That's right. So that's also a risk assessment procedure whereby you'll know whether it is moving in the right trend, in the same trend, and every trend is justified. Yes, that's a risk assessment procedure. Observation and inspection. Right, that is also true. For certain, to take on certain assertions, yes, you need to observe how the controls are working. You need to inspect for yourself. You need to understand how the controls are working, by which you can, which is a procedure for risk assessment, which is right. Audit planning. Your audit planning is not going to be a risk assessment procedure. As part of audit planning, risk assessment procedure will also be there, but audit planning doesn't address risk assessment procedure as such. As per SA 315, only the top three, the first three items are a part of risk assessment procedure, and audit planning is not a risk assessment procedure. Okay. The next one. What should be the course of action of the auditor for the entity not having a documented risk assessment process? The auditor should obtain management written representations on how risks are identified. Okay, good one. The auditor should discuss with the management on how risks are identified, addressed, and determine whether the absence is appropriate in the circumstances and whether it represents a significant deficiency in internal control. That's right. That's what we discussed initially as well. The auditor should advise the management to document the same immediately and accordingly opine on the same in his audit report too. No. The auditor shall discuss with the management on how risks are identified by system, right, and place reliance on the same as documentation in this context is immaterial. No, the second part is wrong, the first part is right. The second part, you need to replace it with the point B, right? Okay, so jumping on to general MCQs. First one, which of the following is not an example of an event or condition that may cast significant doubt on an entity's ability to continue as a going concern? Okay, now we are in Corona. Most of the entities' going concern itself is questioned. Let's think from that point of view as to what all questions your going concern. One, loss of key management personnel without replacement. Okay, the CFO of the company goes out, the executive director of the company goes out, and you don't have a second line for him at all. You don't have a replacement for him. So who will take care of his functions? That's a very critical function in the management. So your going concern will get heavily questioned at that point. Adverse key financial ratios. Typically take hospitality industry or tourism industry during this Corona. The ratios are going to be extremely adverse. Last year you would have posted heavy profits. This year it's going to be heavy losses. Your quarter on quarter, your year on year results, everything is going to be a gamble. Nothing is going to work out. Everything is going to dip so down. So that's going to cast a significant doubt on your going concern. Point C, inability to pay to pay creditors on due date. Yes, if you're not able to pay a lot of creditors at the same time on their due dates, people are going to think that you're not running your company in the right way. It shows there is a cash crisis within the company, which casts a significant doubt on going concern. Current year profit turns to losses after providing depreciation. Okay, this is not something to question your going concern because there is profit. Profit before depreciation is positive. After providing for depreciation, your profit becomes negative. There's nothing to question your going concern. It could be a case where a lot of capital assets were added during the current year, because of which there is heavy depreciation during the current year. It could be a case like that. You need not bother about that, and that's not going to be a big concern for your going concern. Okay, which of the following is not correct? SA 700, forming an opinion and reporting on financial statements, perfectly correct. SA 705, modified opinion, okay, right. SA 701, communicating key audit matters, perfect. SA 706, comparative information, no. So what is comparative information? Comparative information is SA 710, right? So SA 710 is comparative information. So what is SA 706? SA 706 is emphasis of matter paragraphs and other matters paragraphs in the independent auditor's report. Guys, remember one thing with respect to essays, always memorize the essays verbatim, write the essays verbatim. That's very important. Don't take any call on that, don't take any chance on that. Perfectly memorize the essays. It's going to help you in all your answers that you're writing in your exams. Okay, the next one. A Limited has been assigned a cash credit limit of INR 20 lakhs as against its book debts furnished as security. Okay, good. What kind of security creation is it? Okay, when you are assigning your book debts, or when you are assigning your stock in your books against a loan, against a cash credit that you're taking from a bank, that's called assignment. Okay, so what is pledge? A pledge is a case where you're having certain assets. So say for example you're having gold. You are pledging that gold. You're giving that gold to someone. You're taking money against that gold. That's called pledging. You have some asset, a movable asset, you give it and you take money against it. That's called pledging. So your possession as well as your ownership for that time period, it goes off, and once you pay back, it comes back. Mortgage. What is mortgage? For example, you're a farmer, you've got an agricultural land, you mortgage, you go to the bank with your land document, you give the land document to the banker and you take a loan against that. Mortgage is same as pledge, just that it happens against an immovable property. Pledge happens against a movable property, mortgage happens against an immovable property. Assignment is nothing but whereby you are assigning whatever is there in your books. It could be book debts, it could be your stock. You assign that to your banker and take a cash credit against it or a OD limit against that. If you don't pay it, whatever are the receivables or whatever is the stock, the bank would realize that and take that. What is set off? For example, at the same time, you act as a creditor as well as a debtor to someone. At that time, what would you do? You need to pay someone. At the same time, you need to receive something from that same person. So what you'll do, whatever you need to receive from that person, you'll set it off against whatever you need to pay to that person, and only the balance, whatever is there, the remaining amount alone, you will pay back to that person. That's called set off. Okay, tax is a possible obligation that arises from the past events and whose existence will be confirmed only by the occurrence or non-occurrence of one or more uncertain future events not wholly within the control of the entity. Okay, it is contingent, I mean, it is dependent only on the occurrence or non-occurrence of future event. So it is contingent. It is not certain, it is contingent on the occurrence or non-occurrence of a future event. So something, it is contingent. Okay. Is it an asset or a liability? It's a possible obligation. If it is an obligation, it means that something you need to pay. It is something which has to go from you. If there is something that you need to pay or you need to incur, that's a liability. If something has to come to you, that's an asset. Here it's an obligation, which means it is a liability. So what is it? It's a contingent liability, right? Okay. So what are provisions? Provisions, you know the amount certainly. You know that there is a certain liability for you, and you know that approximately that this is going to be the amount. You will be able to measure that amount reliably, but you do not exactly know that exactly this is the amount. So that's a provision. It is not contingent on the occurrence of any future event, occurrence or non-occurrence of any future event. Reserves, you know better. It is all your general reserves, cash reserves, whatever you take and you retain from your profits and keep it to the company. Contingent liabilities, as we discussed now. And liability, it's a certain thing. It is already there in your books. It is showing up in your books. It's a certain thing. The next one, the concept of materiality is applied by the auditor. Once again, in planning and performing the audit, okay, right? In evaluating the effect of identified misstatements on the audit, right? Both in planning and performing as well as in evaluating the effect of identified misstatements on the audit. None of the above is correct. Okay. The concept of materiality comes into picture all the three times. At the time of planning the audit, at the time of performing the audit, at the time of evaluating the effect of identified misstatements on the financial statements and on the audit. So at all the three times, the concept of materiality is going to come into picture. So the right answer is C.